Hey guys, I'm sitting here with Anders in the press area at DreamHack Summer 2014. We're here to talk about tomorrow's playoffs for a little bit. They tried doing the intro a couple of times. Anders wanted to take it over and over again, so I took it over. The first game of tomorrow is, well, they're actually all going to be simultaneous in the quarterfinals, but the first one on top of the bracket is going to be Epsilon against Lemon Dogs. So what do you make of that one?
Without a doubt, the least interesting game out of the four. So we definitely won't be covering that one. It seems like one of these two teams is going to have a fairly easy way to get to the semi-finals, but that's how it is for almost every tournament we've had so far. It seems like ESWC is a really good example last year, and I guess DreamHack Winter Fnatic had a slightly easier run than most of the other teams. So this time apparently it's Lemon Dog's turn potentially.
Yeah, the thing is, Lemon Dog sort of earned that, right? In a way, they didn't really earn it because they weren't the ones to beat Navi. It was Flipside who did the hard work for them. But at least they topped their group, whereas for Epsilon, they could potentially really get an easy semi-finals run just from beating Berserk in their group and getting that far. So far for Epsilon, Shox has actually not been their best player. It's been Kiyoshima, which is somewhat of a surprise considering like many, including myself, thought that Shox would actually just be even better than he was on Titan. Yeah. Because he probably has more of a free reign to do whatever he wanted. What do you think?
Well, yeah, on Titan he was paired with players that I would consider to be maybe not quite at his level, but pretty close to. If you take someone like Screamer and BK, who are like pretty consistent, so now you put him on a team like Epsilon with players like GMX and Kiyoshima, who are maybe a little bit lower than the Titan players. Yeah, it would seem that the difference in skill then would make Shoxy shine even more than he was previously, but it hasn't been the case so far. I don't know. I think Shoxy is one of those players who can actually have a few bad games and then turn up the next day and be incredibly good. So I wouldn't be surprised if Epsilon all of a sudden could look much stronger than he did during the group stage.
So let's say Epsilon wins the game. Doesn't matter, just for the sake of this argument. Now, Epsilon played NIP in the group, and they were terrible that game. They went up 3-0 on C-side of Dust 2, and they just got run over by a truck.
Yeah.
What do you think they can do in the semifinals? Let's say they get there. Like, do you actually think they can sort of elevate their play and just peak at the right time, or do you think that's going to be the end of the road for them regardless?
I think it'll be the end of the road regardless, because they're going to be facing either Navi or Virtus.pro, which is the second match in the bracket, and I don't see them beating any of those two teams. So, I mean, even if Navi weren't playing that well today, I still don't see it happening in the long run.
Okay, so the second match we're going to talk about, you already mentioned, so it's Navi against Virtus.pro, the second match we're going to be talking about. What do you make of that one?
That's a really interesting match. I think Thorin was pointing out when we were on the show, that was the match that didn't happen during the SLTV Star Series game. Navi got to face all the other teams there and ended up winning the whole thing. So I think potentially it could be a lot of fun. Navi, a very slow team on the terrorist side, Virtus.pro an incredibly aggressive team at almost any point in the game. So I think it's going to be interesting to see if Navi can stand up to it, or if the craziness of the Polish team is actually going to come out on top.
Yeah, a good point my colleague here, Peter, made about Virtus.pro is that when they lost at SLTV, Bialy and Snacks actually didn't have a very good tournament at all. I mean, Pasha's always the best player on that team. He's amazing, but they actually struggled then. And now it seems that Bialy and Snacks are both in form. They both played really well in the group stage matches. So, how big of an effect do you think that has on their performance?
Oh, no doubt a really big effect. I think if you have to talk about a weak link on Virtus.pro, I wouldn't want to point out Bialy and Snacks because of a skill level, but more because of experience. And obviously the other three players have enough skill or enough experience to make up for what the other two lack, but they need to somehow put that into effect. And I think maybe just the fact that it's been a little bit of time since where they've been able to play more, because obviously compared to maybe some of the Danish teams that keep switching out rosters, you could say that Bialy and Snacks have been in Virtus.pro for a long time, but I think in the grand scheme of things, they're still a pretty new addition to the team. So I think the more time that passes by, the stronger that team is just going to be, more and more basically.
So, I mean, I obviously think Virtus.pro are one of the clear favorites to win this tournament, right? Everybody thought that coming in. Everybody still thinks that after seeing the group stage. So, here's the problem. They, first Navi, obviously, they have a very good chance of winning that game, right? Now, let's say they beat Navi. They beat Epsilon in the semis. Now they're in the final. They've gotten there very easily. It doesn't really actually say a whole lot about them. I guess they're in better shape probably than SLTV. Now they're probably going to play NIP, assuming everything goes as the odds say. Because NIP probably are slight favorites. They have to be. So let's say they play NIP. Now, Florin had a really good point in his reflections interview with Florin. He said that NIP usually, every single time they've lost these tournament finals, they've lost against a new team. And then after they've lost to that that team, they figure out what they did wrong, how to play against that team, and they usually don't lose against them again. That's actually a very good point that I hadn't thought about. And so, I mean, what do you make of that one? Like, how do you think Virtus Pro can adjust to beat NIP? Because we saw what NIP did to them in Copenhagen after losing to them in Katowice.
Yeah, I was actually just about to bring that up, because you are right, that does at least fit the adjustment scheme, you know, making sure they know what's going on, and then they try and come back and beat them. I don't know, though. I would have been, if you had asked me this question maybe before an NIP, I know this is an online tournament, but they played in the FACEIT tournament, and to me it felt like NIP had a weird sort of struggling moment, and actually even showing up at the LAN here, it feels like they're not quite over it yet. But if you'd asked me right before then if NIP was going to be able to then come and beat, you know, Virtus Pro on LAN here at DreamHack, I would have said definitely yes. I think that would have been a really good chance, because to me it seemed like NIP was not just sort of, yeah, maybe they would be learning a lot about Virtus Pro, but I feel like they were just rediscovering themselves with exist back in the in-game leader role, and it seemed like they were returning to a style that they had at the beginning of the year when they had that old dominating period. Not that I think they'll ever actually come back to having that kind of period again, but I still feel like they could have done much better, and I'm not so sure on ice. Actually, I would put it very close to 50-50 for Virtus Pro and NIP in that final. If that's the final that happens, okay. Yeah.
But we'll back down a little bit. We'll back down a little bit to the quarterfinals. So Virtus Navi, who do you pick?
Virtus Pro now. I'm going to go with Virtus Pro.
Yeah, I think Virtus Pro are definitely the favorites, but I also think we can't just rule Navi out yet. I mean, they did beat both NIP and Titan in Kiev, and they did show signs of playing a lot better over there in the second game against Flipside.
Yes, and then we had a chance to interview Guardian really quickly, and he talked about how the mouse pad actually was causing some trouble for him, because apparently he has a pretty low sensitivity, and with AWPing as well, it causes some issues for him. And I think not to make too many excuses for them, because obviously they're still a pro team and they should still be able to beat Flipside almost no matter what. But if they can figure it out, and they said they were going to try and work on it, I think just the fact that it's a new day, and if they sort some of those technical issues, we could be seeing a completely different caliber of Navi. And the Navi we saw at SLTV Star Series seemed like they could beat anyone, including Virtus Pro, even though they didn't meet them. I feel like in that tournament they might have beat them if they had.
So you think 2-0 or 2-1?
I think it's going to be 2-1 in favor of Virtus Pro. Yeah, I think now we can take a map.
Sorry. Yeah, I think it's the same. So next one's the one that we already touched up on a tiny bit. So NIP Titan. That's the series everybody's been waiting for. At least me and Thorin. I'm not sure if anybody else is waiting for it anymore. But me and him always want to see that series.
Yeah, that's a really difficult one to predict, because if we just rewind the clock a little bit back to the ESCA LAN, where I think was it 4 maps they had of NIP and Titan on that, or NIP and Very games in that. I think it was that LAN where they had 4 maps, and each of them finished 16-14 against in favor of NIP. So it was really ridiculously close, and it was right afterwards that they let go of Kenny S, and I think everyone had a feeling that why would they do that when they were so close to beating them? And now he's back in the lineup, but obviously something else has changed in Titan, because they're just not, or at least every other team has changed so much in between that it seems like Titan's very different now. So my confidence in Titan as a team at this very point in time is actually very low. I could see NIP 2-0 in Titan tomorrow.
Another problem that I see with that is Semler obviously speaks French. He speaks to those guys. He has a better idea of what's going on with them than either one of us do. And he said that Kenny S is the only guy on Titan who's like psyched to play NIP. Everybody else is sort of like, I wouldn't mind drawing them on the other side of the bracket, not getting them until the grand final. So I mean, that's a bad sign to me. I want people that I'm going to side with to want to go to war with the team they're about to play.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And in that respect, Guardian from Navi had a different mentality. He said, if we're going to win and be the best, we have to beat everybody. We have to be able to beat everybody. So that is mentally obviously a really big difference. And I'll hope that Titan are going to take the time in between to readjust that. But obviously, if it's a core feeling you have inside that we just really don't want to face this team now, which is strange, because I remember around the time of DreamHack Winter, I remember talking to some of the guys from Very Games, and they actually did say they were always really happy to play NIP. They always thought it was close. It was always interesting for them. So if that's a mental change that happened, that they now actually almost fear NIP, maybe that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, like you said, I also think NIP is actually going to win. It's just hard to see a team like that who's already not looking forward to the game, and especially the way we saw them play today. I mean, first of all, they got blown away by Hellraisers, who are a very good team, and they always beat those very elite teams more so than the medium level top teams, like top 8 teams. But I just don't see NIP losing that series. The only problem NIP has is they're actually, as we're recording this, just about to start the ESPORTSM Grand Final against Fnatic. So it's what? It's like, what, 11:30 now?
Yeah.
And NIP is going to have to go live at 10 a.m. in the morning. So let's just say it takes them 2 hours to get this over with. They're probably going to be back at like, they're going to be sleeping at earliest at 2 a.m. tonight.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to wake up at 8 at latest. So NIP is actually not going to be getting a whole lot of sleep. And, you know, it might not be that bad early on in the morning. You'll just have a little bit of coffee. You'll get adrenaline pumping. You know, you'll be ready. But it might get worse as the day drags on.
Yep, that's a really good point to bring up, I think, and I don't know how they're going to handle it. I mean, they've been to their share of lands, and I've heard horror stories from the past about NorthCon and other lands that drag out forever and ever, where players only get 2 hours of sleep and everything else. But then again, I guess they're also getting older, so maybe it's going to be more and more difficult to actually stay awake for that long. I think it can be a real problem. I actually do, and especially because the schedule for tomorrow is that crazy. I sort of regret a little bit that it is that way. I understand why we spend 2 days during the group stage, but it's a shame because it means we have so little time for the rest of the tournament. And so yeah, once we get really late, if we start the finals tomorrow at 10:30, which it's scheduled for, then that's good. But we might as well start at 12 o'clock. And in that case, I think yeah, we sort of creep up on the point in time where NIP or Fnatic, if they make it that far, are going to be really tired.
And the thing is, even though some people might look at the schedule and say, there's even a break there, but NIP's, it doesn't matter which semifinal they play, they're actually going to play the second one. But it wouldn't even matter if they played the first one, because they're going to watch the first one. They want to see whoever they're going to potentially meet in the grand final play first. So they're definitely going to be watching that. They're not going to be napping. No, I don't think. I'm pretty sure they're going to be watching that game. So I don't think that's going to be enough for them to lose the series. I mean, today it seemed like KDS was the only player who showed up from Titan. He was amazing on that one game, but aside from that, I mean, Titan really didn't show up individually.
Yeah, which is interesting because one of the main factors why Kenny got dropped the first time around was his inability to perform on LAN, at least according to the rest of the team. Didn't feel like he was doing good enough, maybe the pressure got to him, whatever it was. They felt like he wasn't a good candidate and Shoxy came in, and so if he's now the only one left who actually seems to perform really well, then yeah, the team is in a lot of trouble, obviously. But I mean, yeah, maybe the same thing that's gonna make Na'Vi play potentially better tomorrow is gonna affect Titan as well. It's a new day, and they do have the time in between now because they're not playing unlike NIP and Fnatic. Maybe they will have some time to adjust whatever it is they're doing.
So 2-0 or 2-1?
2-0 NIP.
I actually think it's going to be 2-0 too. I hope it's not going to be 2-0.
I hope not. I definitely hope not, because it's always more fun to watch, the full best of 3 and have that on record, and it would be so. I think it would be very uplifting. I've been waiting for a long time for Titan to step it up again, because it feels like because I love that rivalry, so I want to see it alive and well again. But I fear it's going to be 2-0 in favor of NIP.
So then the last matchup, after a little blunder with the bracket drawing there. It's gonna be Hellraisers SK. Now, like Thorin said, when we did a little analysis of the bracket down there in the tournament area, or the casting area rather, SK is gonna get to play Inferno against Hellraisers because Hellraisers don't play Train. Now, that actually seems like SK is almost destined to win that map unless Hellraisers actually do watch demos and do their homework tonight.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm not entirely sure how that's going to work out, but that could. But even then, it's still a best of 3, and I have a really hard time seeing Hellraisers ultimately losing a best of 3 to SK. Even though their performance today was really, or yesterday was really surprising and really cool, I still don't see it happening.
I'm actually sort of afraid for Hellraisers, because those guys always seem to lose against teams exactly like SK. We've seen it happen plenty of times. Even DreamHack winner, they obviously lost on purpose against Kovanen and Wolves in the group stage. They got the easier bracket draw, and then they touched the series to complexity. They were supposed to be the team going through complexity and Fnatic to get an easy grand final spot, guaranteed 50k, and a chance at NIP in the DreamArena. But they keep throwing these matches against easier teams. Same team happened at ENS1. They lost against Dignitas in the quarterfinals, where everybody thought they were going to be favorites to go through to the semifinals against NIP. So I'm actually somewhat afraid for Hellraisers, especially because SK just seems to be getting these wins on Inferno. So if Hellraisers are smart, though they did look good on Inferno as well, if they're smart and they prepare for the Inferno game, yeah, they can beat SK. Of course they can beat SK. But as of now, I'm going to have to guess that SK probably wins Inferno. And if they win Inferno, it doesn't take that much more to be able to upset one map.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I still think Hellraisers wins 2-1, but I think it could be worse if Hellraisers actually play Train instead of one of the other maps, because SK showed they were pretty good on Train.
Yeah, I think actually a really precise analysis, especially with the maps, you know, banning out Train and then being left with Inferno as one of the maps that SK is very likely going to win. So I can really only second that. But then, you know, earlier today we were talking a little bit about this home crowd advantage thing, and it was quite obvious that when SK was playing, there was a whole host of people, many of them apparently their friends showing up and relatives just showing up to support them. And in the match between Flipside and Navi, we were joking a little bit about it, and I think in that match, it isn't the home crowd advantage that makes Flipside win against Navi. But in a match that may be a little bit closer, like SK and Hellraisers, yeah, maybe actually having a crowd of Swedish people cheering you on could make the difference for SK. If they get, and then I actually think the map, the sort of the which map goes first could be a really big decider. Because then if Inferno goes first, and all of a sudden Hellraisers are in a place where they feel like we got to win 2 maps in a row now to win it all, it's a very different scenario from having Inferno, well, especially if Inferno is last, but it's not going to be that, it's going to be Inferno second then. But if Inferno second is still a big difference from Inferno first, I think.
I also think SK doesn't seem like a very strong terrorist side team. Most of their wins, I mean, against NIP and ESPORTSM, they actually had a very good T side on Inferno. I think they got 10 rounds. But aside from that, they've mostly been winning with very strong CT sides. So I'm actually not sold on SK as a team yet. I think they're a good defensive team, and the problem with being a good defensive team is the better terrorist team usually wins, because it's easier to win rounds on CT side. Everybody's good on CT side, especially if you're a skilled team like Hellraisers. Yeah. So I'm going to have to go with Hellraisers, but I think it's going to be a 2-1 series.
Yeah, I agree. Same prediction actually, maybe a little bit boring, but yeah, I would say 2-1 in favor of Hellraisers too.
Okay, so then let's talk a little bit about potential semifinals and the grand final, just because it would be a little boring to leave it at that. Yeah. So, first of all, which semifinal from the top part of the bracket would you rather see?
Much rather see, well, I'd much rather see Virtus Pro play against Lemon Dogs. I think that's potentially the more fun one. Yeah, I mean, Delpan seemed to be on point with the AWP some of the time, and I think it's going to be more interesting, I think, than watching Epsilon play. Yeah,
I'd actually rather see Epsilon just because I like seeing Shox play. So I hope Shox shows up and they beat Lemon Dogs and they get to play Virtus, and that also assuming Virtus is able to beat Navi, which I don't think is a given. So, I mean, there could be a lot of good games. The problem is the two sort of underdog teams wound up playing each other at the very top of the bracket, so whoever comes out of the Virtus Navi series is going to be a pretty sizable favorite in that one. So that semi-final doesn't sound so promising on paper.
There's another reason why I sort of want to see Delpan is the fact that he sort of didn't. I mean, maybe that was just, you know, him trying to sell himself a little bit, but he did sort of leave in a little sort of tip that maybe if he got an offer from a good team, he'd actually keep playing. So then I want to see what could he do at that level then? That could be fun.
Yeah, that's true. The problem for him is that fnatic is the team that's going to make changes probably, if any Swedish team now, but they already have JW, and I'm not sure they're going to kick JW, because I don't think he's the problem on that team.
Not for Delpan. I don't think they're going to kick Delpan though.
Yeah, exactly. So in the bottom half of the bracket, what do you make of that? What do you want to see happen there?
What I want to see happen? Oh, that's tough. I actually think Titan Hellraisers could be a very fun match to see. I think that could be a very interesting clash of styles, basically, because of the way Hellraisers is structured, having 5 people who are basically all superstars when it comes to aiming and playing the game at that level, and then up against Titan's new attempt to, you know, build the team around Kenny. So if everything balances on Kenny and he just dies a few rounds, then you know how, especially if he has to have the AWP to actually work. If you kill him a few rounds in a row, it could be that Titan breaks apart, but it could also be that the Kenny strat actually works. So I think Titan Hellraisers might be a very, very fun game in the semi-finals, but that's what I hope, not what I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think Hellraisers against either one of Titan or NIP would be really fun. Really fun to watch. I would actually rather see them play NIP just because Hellraisers have beaten a couple times last fall. I think SLTV finals was one, and ESWC third place decider was another. Might have happened also online somewhere else, but you know, I think those teams match up really well. I think that'd be a really good matchup, and it also would give NIP the opportunity of going through a very hard bracket to win this tournament. I mean, it'd actually be really impressive if they went through Titan to Hellraisers to Virtus Pro, and I also think Virtus Pro NIP, excuse me, would be the most interesting final. Just because the history these two teams now have, playing the grand final of the Copenhagen Games, grand final of EMS1, and also meeting in the lower bracket of SLTV finals.
Yeah, that would be because we have. I mean, this is the cool thing about Counter-Strike, because there was that whole point in time when it was just only NIP in very games. That was the only matchup anybody cared about, and we pretty much knew it was going to happen in almost any finals. And we were just all waiting for the day when maybe very games was going to beat NIP, which never really happened that much. But then now, as we sort of progressed from that, it seems like now we have a lot more rivalries coming into it, where all of a sudden fnatic dipped in, at least for DreamHack Winter, but then we have now becoming SLTV, and Virtus Pro and NIP I think might be a good candidate for the new sort of top rivalry in the scene. So yeah, that might be an absolute ideal scenario, in fact.
Okay, so DreamHack never plays a third place decider, which I think is a good thing, because people don't really seem to be giving it their all, able to give it their all anymore at that point. But who's your top 4 then, just to sum it up?
So I actually think it's going to be Virtus Pro in first, NIP in second, and let me think real quick. Yeah, Hellraiser's third and fourth, and then who's going to be that? I guess that's going to be, I think Lemondorf's then they get to the semi-finals, and yeah, I think it makes sense.
Yeah, it's kind of boring because I think, same aside from Lemon Dogs, I think Epsilon's going to be Lemon Dogs. So aside from that, I think we're done here. Pretty much talked tomorrow's playoffs to death. Yeah. More or less, we've talked about every single matchup and every potential matchup, I think. So, anything else?
No, I think it's pretty much it. It's probably going to turn out completely differently now that we've said it. Obviously, I'm glad Thorin is not here. After all, that's one bonus that we have going on. But yeah, thanks for listening, guys, of course.
Yeah, thanks.